was involved with the Necessities of Life and Buddy program. After moving to Ohio 14 years ago, she volunteered with various homeless agencies and traveled to Ecuador with a medical missionary team. She's been living in Ohio with her husband Billy of 25 years and several rescued kitty cats. In her spare time, she enjoys reading, traveling, thrift store shopping, and talking to God. She wants people to know Jesus, CEO.
All right. First of all, I'm a novice speaker, okay? I'm not used to speaking in front of people. And so right now my heart is going pity-pat. And excuse me if in the course of my speaking, all of a sudden I become like Ricky Ricardo, okay? And I start speaking Spanish. Right. Because when I get nervous, my Spanish starts coming out. So yes, my name is Graciela McLaughlin. Most of my homeless men call me Miss Grace. And I started this nonprofit ministry. This year is going to be 5 years. We'll be celebrating 5 years, I believe, in July. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, faith-based organization. But my ministry really started way back, like over 20 years ago. Like she said, in Southern California on Skid Row, that's where it all began. I just had this passion for helping the homeless, the underserved, and I would just go down to Skid Row, and at the time I was taking a medical class, and part of my requirements to get my certificate was I needed to do a certain amount of blood pressure screenings. And after I went through my whole family, I thought, well, where else am I gonna get these other hundreds that are required? So, bing, the light went off. And I went down to Skid Row with my blood pressure cuff, and I would take Band-Aids with me and other things like that, snacks. And I started doing blood pressures on the homeless down there and giving them advice if their pressure was high. I would tell them what to do to bring it down, seek medical help, this and that. So that's where it all began. Then me and my husband moved here, probably close to 15 years now. And when we moved here from San Francisco, okay, people, especially my family, they were saying, "Are you guys crazy? What are you gonna go do in Ohio? You're gonna die in Ohio." But we just came on not a whim. My husband had been laid off. He had worked for an IT company. And at that time, all the IT companies were going belly up. And his was one of them. So he was fortunate enough to get offered a job here. So here we are. Right. And while I was waiting to get job offers, I started doing what I did best. I started going out into the street and doing the same thing I was doing in California. I started doing it here. So my nonprofit is called Amazing Grace Empowerment Ministries. And I tell people, because they always say, "Oh, you named it after yourself." I say, no. I said, this grace is the grace from above. So we do a lot of homeless ministry, but that's not just what we do. That's just a small component of what we do. We also do, the whole thing about Amazing Grace Empowerment Ministries is we empower the underserved. The way we do that is through educational workshops. So we offer workshops on nutrition, money management, life skills, and things like that. And then a big component of Amazing Grace Empowerment Ministries is the homeless. But we also do work with a prison population, children of after-school programs, We have a puppet ministry. It's all laid out in the brochure. Last year, I tell people we are a little mustard seed, but watch us grow. We don't get any government money, and that's kind of by choice because, well, first of all, I don't know anyone that'll help me write grants, okay? But also because I didn't want the government dictating to me what I can and cannot do. Because once you get government money, then they have a say. And I want to be able to be free and clear to do what I want, to do what God wants me to do. And so everything that we do is all done through God's grace, and also people like yourself that are generous and kind and offer their time, their talent, and more importantly, cha-ching, their money, okay? Because that's how we do a lot of what we do. I work part-time, so I can't do it all on my own income. But even though we don't even have a physical building and we don't get government money, we do so much. And that is just a testimony of what God can do. God can do so much with so little. And I'm proof. My ministry is proof of that. Last year, through our workshops and going out into the street and feeding and clothing, we were able to serve us, I think, like 963 individuals. And I say, that's not bad for us, People say, where's your building? And I joke around and I go, right here. We are truly a mobile ministry. So we did service about almost 1,000 people. And just yesterday, we went out into the street. My little posse is growing. Amen. God is bringing them from right and left and everywhere. So volunteers have been coming into the fold. Yesterday we went out and it was Valentine's Day, so we had a love brigade hit the streets. And we went out and we fed and we clothed and we counseled the homeless. And we were able to help about 75 men that were on the street. And one of the gentlemen that came to us, and you can see the website, and if you go on Facebook too, you can see a lot of our pictures. One of the gentlemen that came through us yesterday, he was so sad, and when I asked him what was going on, he said he had just come from the doctors, and the doctor had given him a diagnosis, medical diagnosis. They told him he had an inoperable brain tumor and that he only had a certain amount of time to live. And he was very sad. And he said, Miss Grace, he said, I never thought I would ever end my days living at the shelter. And he asked us, the volunteers that were there, he said, teach me how to pray. Teach me how to connect with God, because he didn't know none of that. And so right there on the spot, we prayed over him. We had a pastor that was there, and he prayed, and we all prayed for him, and we were telling him, what to do, trying to tell him the best we can, I don't know a whole lot, but I just say the words that God puts in my mouth. And so when we were done praying with him and telling him, what to do, he was such a changed man from the man that came to the man that we sent on his way. He was just so happy that we had opened doors for him, that now I know how to pray to God, and now I have a chance, to maybe save myself, because he was worried that he might not make it. And so yesterday it was just a wonderful, wonderful experience. seeing all the men coming hobbling with their walkers, you know. We go out to the Gateway shelter, but we do it on the street because they don't let us go into their parking lot. So we were there, we had our little caravan of cars, and they just came with their walkers, with their canes, and it was just so wonderful to be able to help that many men. And wow, I haven't reverted back to Spanish. That's good.
Wow.
Is there any questions? Anybody have any questions?
Only men?
Well, we help men and women and children, but
Right.
yesterday, since we went to Gateway,
Yeah,
that's a
okay.
men's shelter.
Yeah, but you do women and
Oh, yeah.
children. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's really a blessing what you're doing, and I think it's also a blessing that we met, because I think I'll be able to help.
Oh, that would be awesome. And you know, God has been expanding our horizon, because I always tell God when I wake up, Lord, expand my horizon. You know, because only you can do it. And He's been opening doors for us. When I started doing all of this, it was me going down to that street where the Gateway is, Gettysburg, with my trunk full of things. And it was just me. And one time, they called the cops on me, somebody passing by.
Whoa.
They called the cops on me, and I was getting ready to get on the freeway, and the cops pulled me over, and I said, oh my God, what did I do? And he pulled me over. It was at night, and he flashed his light. He said, we got word that there was a woman broken down in her car off of Gettysburg, and she was being accosted by some men.
Oh, God.
They said, was that you? I said, well, partly. I said, I wasn't being accosted. The men were hugging me.
Oh,
You
boy.
know? But the person passing by thought they were attacking me. So I said, well, what were you doing there, you know? I said, you know, I was handing out scarves and gloves and things like that. And he said, you know, that is a beautiful thing you do. He said, I'm glad you did that. And he just let me go on my way.
All right.
But I thought it was awesome that they thought the men were accosting me. But we do work in Dayton, but also in the surrounding community. We have a thing called Street Church, where we go down to Cincinnati and take food, and we help the homeless there. And you know, Franklin, Ohio. So as long as it's within a reasonable distance, we'll go. You know, because Jesus Christ didn't know about boundaries. You know, there were no state lines for Him. He was all over. And I just base what I do on Him. What He does, I want to do. And we do help the men and women as well, also children. We're starting up, we're trying to teach reading to young children. So we're trying to collect children's books. If anyone wants to donate any books to our program, we want to start, because we've been doing a very good job with the men and the women, but the children we've kind of left to the side. So, and I was raised with, they used to say I was special education. I was a special ed student, simply because I didn't speak English very well. And they didn't know what to do with me when I was in school, so they just put me in a special ed class. And I know what it's like to be singled out because you're different, or you can't speak the language, or you're not as brain smart, you know. And so I want to teach these children at least how to read and open their world to them. So if anybody wants to donate any books or anything, money, money. So anyway, I think I've said enough. Thank you for letting me come here, and thank you for Mr. Tony. My meeting Mr. Tony was a godsend.
All right.
Because he has been helping me in his own little way, and I'm seeing the fruit of his labor. Okay. So I've got some, if you just want to